All right, welcome back to What Are We Watching with Jonathan Corto, and we've got another. And let's see, let's not have it. Let's not have. We learned this last time, the last stream. Don't have other tabs open because otherwise you'll get feedback when you live stream. So don't do that. But we learned something. So, anywho, now that is out of the way, we've got another wing it solo stream this week, and I want to start by thanking the Poptimist for coming on last time to talk about Quentin Tarantino. That was really fun, and I really hope we get to talk about more directors again in the future. But for this week, I've got a series of reviews. I've got some discourse commentary, which we'll get to, and a little bit of Trek Tuesday for the end. So, with all that put in, let's jump on it. And we're going to start with Animal Farm because this, my God, was a terrible film. It is a the there it, there is an ongoing debate, and it will always be a debate of what makes a good adaptation. Like, how close do you have to hew to the source material, and at what point is it not working? I've got a lot of friends who need it to be, and I lean in their department, where if you're gonna adapt something, keep as close to the source material as humanly possible. And then there's folks who just take the idea and go to town and pay no never mind. What Animal Farm does, so I'm going to use Jurassic Park as an example here, because Jurassic Park is the book. Jurassic Park is very different from the it's very different from the movie, but the themes are the same, and this is the sticking point here. Are we hewing to what the author's intent was? And this is where Animal Farm, the cartoon, absolutely just spits in the face of the original book. The original book is an overtly political book, and it is doing a very specific thing. It is a very specifically an anti-communist book. What Andy Serkis does with this film is he reverses the polarity and tries to make an anti-capitalist book out of it. And you can kind of see him jumping through hoops to try to. And it's like if you're not for capitalism, that's fine. It is very shitty to take something that's anti-communist and try to make it anti-capitalist. That's subverting the author's actual intent, and that's where I have a big fucking problem when you're adapting a piece of work. Like, if there is plenty to criticize about capitalism. If you want to make a film about that, write an original piece about that and do that. Do not take a classic work that is done for a specific thing and try to make it the opposite. Like that's a little bit that's I'm not even going to say a little bit. That is a lot bit of a dick move to do. And I would say, on top of it, I would say the cardinal sin of the film is trying to take a book that is dark. Like, I reread Animal Farm in 20 like, this is when I was living in California, and it's like the pandemic, you can't leave your apartment, and I reread both 1984 and Animal Farm. I particularly like Animal Farm, and it's doing a specific thing. Like, you should not be don't take what the author did and make it the opposite. That's my rule. Just don't do it. That's and they did. But also, like, in tone, Animal Farm is a dark book, and trying to make a happy face Pixar style narrative out of it is a fail. Like, that is not what that book is. That book is it is a dark book. Um, it could it, and you very well could make a fantastic animated film out of Animal Farm, but it would be a hard PG-13 or an R. It is very dark, and inserting fart jokes into it is like, that's a problem. It does not translate. So I don't know what they were thinking with this movie. It's the story structure of it is not great. Again, reverses the polarity of the book, and then, like, given our modern times, it of course has a it's trying to take Napoleon and make him a cheap Trump parody, which is like, I'm sorry, like, Napoleon in the book, like, the pigs are it plays the film plays the pigs off as stupid, and part of the thing in the book is they're not stupid. They're actually quite intelligent, they're quite subtle and very, very manipulative. And that's not how they play them in this movie. And that's sort of like the evil of what they do in the book is how you know you know taking the populace and manipulating them to their own means. That's like, you have to have some intelligence for that. And the Seth Rogen version of Napoleon doesn't have that remotely. And it's again taking a smart book and making there are plenty of smart ways in which you could make a film um haranguing Trump. This is the cheap, not thought out version of it. And it's you've got a clearly Elon Musk stand in order to take the jabs at capitalism. And it's just like, okay, like, we see what you're doing. It's not what was in the book. And it's like, come on. Like, if you're gonna make Animal Farm. And that's not what they did. And it's really rather shocking that Angel Studios picked up this movie, because it very much clearly has sort of left-wing themes. Like, it's very, very biased, and they sort of have cut their teeth on, like, we're not going to be biased, we're just going to be entertainment. And so this it really puts a dent in their reputation for, we're not going to beat you over the head with a left-wing message. And they're gonna have to, and like, this is like, I on some level, I like what they're I my understanding is that the goal is, we're just pure entertainment, we're not gonna hit you over the head, which means we're not gonna hit you over the head with conservative messaging, we're not gonna hit you over the head with left-wing messaging. And this cuts really against what they were planning to do. And to this point, I mean, they had I and this is real, and I didn't catch this until I listened to was listening to some other commentary on YouTube, where they takes a direct pot shot via fart joke at The Sound of Freedom, which was a big profitable movie for them. And just like, what are you doing, guys? Like, you're spitting in the face of your audience. Don't spit in the face of your audience. What are you doing? So they're gonna have to make up. They are going to have some makeup work to do, because what this says to me is that, when it comes to any entertainment, if you're looking to not get crapped on, you have to you have to just again, ultimate at the end of the day, vote with your dollar. Vote with your dollar. And I think with Animal Farm, Angel Studios lost a little bit of trust. And it's like, you're gonna think twice and about spending money on it. And it's a very, very interesting, like, I often get caught up in what am I looking for? Because I am not looking for explicitly conservative entertainment. There are very many liberally themed films that I love a great deal. One of my favorites is Aliens. James Cameron, obviously, very much a liberal guy. It's very much a anti corporate film, but I do love it. Like I don't want to be pandered to. I just don't want to be lectured, and that is a balance that any filmmaker is going to have to come to terms with at the end of the day if it comes to entertainment. Like you can do and it doesn't matter what direction it comes from. You can do the whole activist thing, whether it be from the left or the right. It's not the best way to make a movie. And even if you want to make a point, if you're trying to sell a point, a lecture is not necessarily the best way to go about it, and your average normal person just looking for a little bit of entertainment when they get home, and that's where you fail if you hammer people over the head. And I Angel made a big mistake with this film, and then there was a little video they did sort of attacking people who were pointing out that hey, this isn't from the trailer very clearly. This is not Animal Farm. Don't attack the viewer. That's At the end of the day, that's not a good plan. It's not a good plan. Don't do it. They're gonna have to make up for that. It's not terminal, but an apology would be nice. And at the end of the day, do not reverse the polarity of the original author. Like that's a problem. If an author in a book is saying a specific thing, to pull it out and say the opposite thing makes you a little bit of an ass. And that's my thoughts about that. Don't do it. And that's not Orwell was not a capitalist guy. He wanted the socialism, and then he saw firsthand what the Soviet Union was, and then was like, shit, maybe this doesn't work. Doesn't mean he liked capitalism, but he wrote two great novels, 1984 and Animal Farm, to put out there like, hey, this collectivist bullshit doesn't work. Like that was the message. So to undermine that and try to put a cutesy kid's face on it is absolute fucking bullshit. But that's all I have to say about that. Moving on, the plan is we're getting to reviews. We're going to get to reviews shortly. I'm sort of getting the sort of political bullshit that I don't particularly want to talk about out of the way. The next thing is like Odyssey trailer. The Odyssey trailer, like the trailers, not spectacular trailers, and there's obviously a lot of commentary about the trailers, but I also wonder from a trailer perspective, if you're cutting a trailer, when it comes to studios, there's a lot of security involved in those. So I have questions as to whether they even have the entirety of the film in order to make a trailer, because Christopher Nolan is notoriously, keeps everything close to the vest. So if you don't have the whole movie and you only have approved bits, it's a little harder to make a compelling, and trailer editing is very much an art now. So just going back to last week when we talking about Tarantino, one of the best trailers I've ever seen is the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That trailer, it sells the movie, but also it's a little piece of art in itself, and you can watch that trailer on its own, and it's very entertaining and obviously makes you want to watch the movie. And I don't know that they've gotten there with the Odyssey. I don't know if it's laziness. We're just assuming that we can sell the film on Christopher Nolan's name, which you absolutely can do now. So it's like, honestly, at this juncture, I want less rather than more. Like, I just want to go like Christopher Nolan, The Odyssey. I'm in the theater. There's not a whole ton that you need to do in order to sell me on it, and I want it to be good. If there's any point at all that I'm going to try to make today, it's that I would like it to be good. I'm in the middle of reading the poem right now. Haven't read it before. I did see the TV version with Armando Asante way back when in the 90s, and I remember it fondly. I'm going to have to, in the next month and a half, rewatch it. But it's like I'm excited. Any Christopher Nolan movie is an event film. But nevertheless, we have like stupid culture war fights over this now, and my reaction for what it's worth is, can we just see a fucking movie? Like, why God, why is this a thing? Um everything has to be apparently a war, and in the culture wars, I like, can we not do weapons down just for 2 goddamn seconds? Can we not do the scene in Warhorse, the no man's land scene where we get Warhorse out of the, we get him out of the barbed wire and send him home? Can we do that? Apparently not, but a bunch of controversies, and I can only speak to where I stand. I can only speak to where I stand on them, frankly. Item number one, apparently, Lupita Nyong'o is playing Helen of Troy. It's a race swap, and in this instance, I'm fine with it. I'm fine. Like, I'm fine with it. I think the Odyssey is just so old and just so universal. It's sort of like Shakespeare. It's just so universal. It applies to the themes in it speak to everyone on Earth. So why are we like, well, why harp on this thing? It's not the same as, say, Black Snape. Race swapping Snape, if you've read the books, has an effect on the plot. It affects how we look at his arc, but also it affects other characters around him. When you take Snape and race swap him, now all of a sudden you get to book 5, and James Potter and his friends are kicking the crap out of him in high school, and now it's just not about bullying. Now James Potter looks like a little bit of a racist, which recontextualizes the story in a completely different way, so it matters. And then in the case of just Harry himself, he's going to school, and the one teacher he actively doesn't like and distrusts is the black teacher. And it's like, now it's just like, oh, Harry, what's yeah, you seem like kind of a racist shithead now. What's with that? Harry, there's a problem with Harry Potter here. Like, have you seen Harry hating on the black teacher? So, like, there is context within that story that makes it not work. In the case of Helen of Troy, it's for me, one thing: is she pretty? Like, it's, face that launched 1,000 ships. And Lupita Nyong'o, she's pretty. She's pretty. It would be a completely different thing if they got a 1,000-pound morbidly obese woman and then tried to convince us all that this is the standard of the ultimate beauty. That would get me all like, it's like I would start asking, okay, what are we doing here? Race swapping, it doesn't, it just doesn't bother me, and I feel we're like, this is a instance of making mountains out of molehills. And let's just see the movie. Let's just see the movie, and hopefully it's good. It could entirely work. We'll see. Could I be entirely wrong? Sure. But Christopher Nolan's batting average is pretty damn good, Tenet notwithstanding. I'm was not a fan of Tenet. I do need to give it the good old second go around, but I didn't know what the hell was going on in that movie. So I I think Tenet is his low point. I mean, Dark Knight Rises has its problems, but at least the story in Dark Knight Rises was comprehensible. Tenet was sort of like, what the hell am I watching right now? So I don't think it's I hope it's not it doesn't hit under that. I want it to be good. And clearly you look at the trailer, you got all of these great physical effects, and that I do think is what Christopher Nolan cares about. And this is another of the sort of historical inaccuracy of the armor is another thing that people are harping on. And the reality is, and I if you know history super duper pooper scooper well, I get it. You're looking for it to be accurate to the period. The reality is the bulk of the audience the bulk of the audience doesn't know the history of armor. They don't. Like what they're thinking of is does it look cool? Like that ultimately is and when I remember at the time that I went to see Titanic, I was as a kid I was really very obsessed with the Titanic, the historical event, and I held a grudge against the movie for a long time because it's not focused on the historical event. It's Romeo and Juliet on a boat, and I had a big problem with it. And my parents covered my eyes for the PG-13 boobs, and like how dare they? And that's the only reason I re-rented it. But like the just this is how juvenile I was in college. I was just like, I am seeing these PG-13 boobs. I am going to the college library. I am renting Titanic, and I am watching it again for the PG-13 boobs. And they were wonderful PG-13 boobs, but also I warmed on it. I warmed on the film a little bit then, and every time I've watched it since, I've grown on the movie as a whole. And it is, in fact, Titanic is a great film, but it's like I very much appreciate that how much people want historical accuracy in a film. Like it's great when it's done. And you know who I do think who does seem to really hold on to that is Robert Eggers. If you haven't seen his rendition of Nosferatu, spectacular, just wonderful piece of filmmaking. And he does keep this is a guy who does make sure everything is just exactly on point to how it was in history. And I don't think that's Christopher Nolan. I think Christopher Nolan, and maybe this is not giving him enough credit, but I think he just likes, here's big practical thing that I have done. I have built boats and put them into the Mediterranean Sea, and we filmed on the Mediterranean Sea. Look how cool this is, and this is, and it's very cool, and it's very cool, and I'm looking forward to it. But I think harping on the armor, like it's not being realistic about what a general audience is actually looking for, to be honest. Apparently there's a rapper who's in the film that who I don't know. I don't like it's a whole it's like it's like he's saying that oral history is analogous to rap. It's like okay, if that's that's how you see it, fine. Like I don't know why I don't know why that's, again, we'll see. Like it could be terrible. It always could be terrible. I don't know is always an answer. Which like brings me into the sort of the Elliot Page of it all. It's not confirmed that Elliot Page is Achilles. I'm currently in the middle of not in the middle. I'm at the first third of the poem. It's really good. If I'm reading the maybe I'll drop in the comments which translation I'm reading. But it's a good, it's really, and particularly if you like in the middle of the day, if you have spots of time where, like, let's say for example, like in post-production, like I'll have instances where I'm exporting a cut, and it's going to take like 15 minutes to export out that cut. What's sort of awesome about the Odyssey, because it's a poem and it's written in stanzas, like you can take, it's like, okay, like my computer is locked down for a minute. Let me pick up this poem, and it's like I can read a little bit of it. Like I can get I It's like pup, 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 pup. I can very easily start here, end here. The export is done. It's like, okay, move on to work. So you can like pick it up and put it down very, very easily. So I definitely recommend it, but I am not at the Achilles portion of it. My understanding is that Odysseus runs into Achilles in the underworld. Again, I'll get there when I get there. If that's the case, there are ways, I'm sure, that Elliot Page, like in an artful way, could work. I don't know that necessarily will, but it could. Where they're gonna get into trouble is if they flash back to actual Trojan War with Elliot Page fighting in the Trojan War, and 5 foot nothing, 100 pounds when wet. It's gonna look really, really stupid. So that's where they're gonna run into trouble, and it's like that's where it's like you're undercutting. There's can there is in particularly from left-wing people, and in Hollywood, this war on not, like, it's like if you're at all masculine, like masculinity in and of itself is bad, which is bullshit. Like, like the concept of toxic masculinity, it used to like it the concept of toxic masculinity, it used to be called something else. It was called being a dickbag. Like that's what it is. But like physical strength, stoicism, blah 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 blah. That, like, all of that, like, is great and quite positive and helpful for culture. But to take the actions of douchebags and apply it to all men, like, it's like, come on, man. Like, that's a problem. That's a problem. That's a problem. Can we stop? And that, again, this is not the translation that I'm reading, but like this is like the worrying thing is that the that the translation he's going off of is the sort of the super duper pooper scooper feminist version of it. And when when I complain about that, it's never like, it doesn't have anything to do with what it has everything to do with how we look at men. I'm not a scholar on feminism. Like, I am familiar enough that to know it's like there's waves. There's waves. Whatever wave we're at is the, like, men bad wave. And I am of the thought that magnanimous is good, and can we get to magnanimous? So that's the bit. The translation is what I'm worried about, is that are we going to find a way to make it anti-male, like men bad? I don't think that I don't think that's going to be a thing. Again, Christopher Nolan, to this point, good batting average. His films are not overtly political, in my experience. I will give him the benefit of the doubt. I think everybody left, right, and center should shut the hell up. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. The movie is going to be what it is going to be. Like, and hopefully it's good. I want to live in a world where we look at a film and we can all get behind, we're excited for this film. I am excited for this film. I hope it's good. I hope it's universally appealing. I hope it gets people into the theaters, which apparently it's been a year out. There are screens, if you're seeing it in 70 millimeter, where it's been sold out a year ahead. I hope it gets people in theaters, because the movie theater is having an experience with an audience is a beautiful thing. So I hope that. So I would love for all of us, left, right, and center, can we, in the terms of the culture war, put weapons fucking down? Let's put it down. For the love of God, I'm tired. I'm sure a lot of people are tired. And that's where I would love for Hollywood to realize that we're all fucking tired. Like, let's just tell good stories. Tell good stories that make sense. Like, that would be lovely. But on the theater front, that brings me, we're gonna get off of this stupid horse shit that I've been talking about for the last 30 minutes. And we're gonna go into reviews now. I think it's 3 weeks ago I saw Michael. Really good movie. Really quite good movie. It's like it's interesting to see the reactions to it, and a lot, it seems like a lot of reviews are harping on that it doesn't cover his accusations. And as far as I can recall, as long as this movie has been in my headspace, it's always been pitched as a two part film, in that part one is covers the first half of his life, part two covers the back half of his life, which, so, like, jumping immediately on the accusations, that's the back half of his life. Why, like, if I know this, why don't you guys know this? And like, let's see what part two does. And obviously the amount of money that part one makes factors in. It did very well. Likely we'll get the part two, but so that I thought was a little, disingenuous. But with any biopic, I think you need to take the Michael Jackson film with a grain of salt. It is a well constructed film. It's a pretty it's a universal film, in that, like, it is about a uniquely talented child used by his father to get to money. And that's the part of the film that really really works, and sort of speaks to truth. And I'm not not a Michael Jackson scholar, but that's sort of like general history. His dad was kind of awful. And this is a kid who never got a chance to, and this is what I think the film does really quite well. This is a kid who never got a chance to be a kid, and because of that, grew up into a talented but very maladjusted adult. And I think the film does a really really good job of showing that. Now, the family is so intricately involved in the production, again, they have a financial interest in maintaining Michael Jackson's image. Like, there's, they need people to look at him well. So it's always, in regards to Michael, it's always going to be looked on in the most positive. I think it's probably some blend of fantasy and reality. I feel like a lot of the stuff with his dad, probably very real. Probably very real, and it's very sad. Michael Jackson had a very, very, I think, sad, unfortunate, like, it's like I don't want to say unfortunate, because I mean, the man made just this music that's beloved by everyone. But he had a really really sad life, and the movie does a good job with that, and lands on a good note. But if they do get around to making the sequel, it's going to be it's going to be like the Wicked films. Part 1 is really really fun. It's got all the hot music that you love. Um Part 2 is going to be depressing as hell. To be honest, I don't once you get past the 80s, I'm not familiar with Michael Jackson's music. I don't that was the height of his era, so that's where part 2 will struggle, if and when they get to it. But Jafar Jackson, fantastic. I don't know. He really embodies his uncle. Um, which has got to be sort of a cathartic experience, I would think, trying to bring your uncle to life. I don't know if he has acting ambitions. I think that would be a problem because going forward, you will be like, he'll be so glued to playing this specific part. You'd have to do something really just totally left field to sort of burst out of that. And then, I mean, Coleman Domingo is fantastic as Joe Jackson. He is a true villain. Every time he shows up on screen, it's really, really uncomfortable in ways that are really like he's this aggressive presence that, and Jafar Jackson works just tremendously well off of him in that, like, it's like he's afraid of this guy. And Coleman Domingo does a great job in showing why he is afraid of him. So it's for those two performances and the music, it's worth watching. It knows what the audience wants. It knows like it does a solid enough job of telling Michael's story, but also giving the audience all the music that they love. And there is an issue with I think the biopic that Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story with John C. Riley, sort of like it sort of ruined the biopic just a little bit because all of them are really kind of a little bit tropey. All of them have sort of similar beats. They all have the sort of like moments where you see something on the news and just, oh, I have the idea for Beat It. And you can see that in every biopic, and it's hard, a little hard to take seriously now. But on the list of biopics, well done. It's a well done film. You will have a good time seeing it. I saw it in IMAX. Really great in IMAX, particularly when they get to the bringing the song "Bad" into it at the end. The audio, and this is the one thing. Like I saw it the second week it was out. The theater wasn't completely full, but it was really real. There were a lot of people there, and that was really nice. It's really nice to see a movie in a theater. It's nice to see a movie in a theater with a lot of people who are really also really, really into it. Like that's what movies are supposed to be about. And the film brings that. Like clearly people want to go see it, and it brings that energy, and people are there. And I'm looking forward to films this summer. It seems like there's going to be a lot of stuff to see, and I think it's going to be a better year for theaters than last summer. And thank God, because the movies are special, and we should be seeing movies together all the time. Which brings me to my next review. Cheers. Devil Wears Prada and Devil Wears Prada 2. Now, the first film I finally watched yesterday in its entirety. It's one of those films, and to be fair, for a long time, Shawshank Redemption was like this for me, where I saw a good chunk of it on television, on cable. Like you catch a scene here, a scene there, and then finally, I set up a cousin date to go see the second one with my cousin. And it's like, okay, well, I gotta go. So I actually need to watch the first one, and it's a great movie. 5 out of 5. Like it is in an interesting way. The nearest thing that I have as a comparison is Star Wars. It's a hero's journey. You got a young woman, not all that into fashion, needs a job, gets the call to do this assistant job at this magazine, and she's up against a big bad adversary, and then she grows and becomes better because of it. It's very, very well done. Lot Great performances all around, and people are going to be watching the first film from now till the end of time. Hard disagree with Meryl Streep being quote unquote overrated. She's not overrated. She's very, very good. Um, and we've all had bosses like Miranda. That's why I think the first film plays so well. Is I think everybody has been there dealing with difficult people, and but also it does a really like cool, interesting job of sort of humanizing your tough ass boss to an interesting degree, and it comes from somewhere. So first film, spectacular, 5 out of 5, loved it. The second one is perfectly, totally fine and adequate. Like it knows what the audience and the fans of the first film want, and it does it. Um, and it doesn't. There's not a whole lot that it does beyond that. I think it brings an interesting thought on how print is. I don't know if you'd say print is dead, but it's certainly dying. Um, if you were a magazine, how do you evolve into the century that we're living in with social media and all that stuff? That's a big. You've got hedge fund managers and all this sort of corporate nonsense. How do you keep the magic of the content that you're making pure and not deviating? And the other thing the second one does really quite well is stressing the importance of generational knowledge. The and I suppose this is going into spoiler territory, but you've got the older man who owns the magazine and sort of other things writ large, and he's with his son, and sort of the old man, his father was involved before him, and the old man halfway through the film dies, and then the son doesn't like the son runs things by committee and he doesn't understand what makes this particular magazine special. It's just all it is quote unquote product, and he doesn't really give a crap about it. And in sort of I would say an interesting parallel, you look at say Lord of the Rings. Christopher Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien's son, was very, very protective of his dad's work. Christopher Tolkien passes along, and then we get Rings of Power. So it's just sort of like evidence that the further away that you get from the original generation, the more those generations forget what their forebears did in order to make this what it was. And that to me was quite interesting. It does have to, I think, convolute ways to get the characters back together again, and that's kind of where it fails a little bit. There's a lot of suspension of disbelief that one has to do with how fast a giant mega magazine could get bought and sold between different people. That was just like, okay, I'm not buying this. I don't know that I buy this. Like, I can kind of suspend my disbelief, but only to a degree. Like, this isn't worth like that. So much didn't work for me, but the performances stayed on point, and it made it worth watching. The thing that really bothered me was I feel like they took Emily Blunt's character and they wanted a villain, and they make Emily Blunt's character this sort of vindictive villain that I'm not sold that this person we knew from movie 1 would get here in movie 2. And I think it was a little bit of a portrayal of her character. And my guess, the last scene that she's in the film feels a little bit to me like they ran a cut for a test audience. The test audience didn't like what they did with her characters. It's like, okay, we need to write and put in um this scene to sort of walk it back a little bit. I don't know that that's the thing. That's what it felt from an editorial perspective. That's what it felt like to me. But by and large, it's a fun movie. It's not going to be the first film when it if you're rifling through channels, if you're rifling through channels and you come across the Devil Wears Prada one, you're gonna stop and you're gonna watch it's like Back to the Future. You're gonna stop on it and you're gonna watch it for the rest of it. That's the type of film that it is. The second one just doesn't have that magic. It feels a little bit disposable, not quite disposable as like at least Devil Wears Prada 2, at least basically mostly solid. Like it's not a bad movie. Gladiator 2 sucks ass. Like it's not Gladiator 2. Don't watch pretend Gladiator 2 doesn't exist. Don't just pretend like it didn't happen. But like you could watch Devil Wears Prada 2 and you're gonna have a good time. It's not gonna stick with you in the same way that the original film did. And I had hoped to get out to the Cheap Detectives today to do one more review. One thing with not living particularly close to a city, it's really hard it's basically impossible with work to get to movies during the week. So it's just the weekend. I didn't get to it this week. So all y'all who live in cities near theaters, enjoy it and go to the theater, go see a movie, go get a friend, and go see a movie, because it's nice to get out, and like the theaters really do need your support. So go to it. But I can do a little bit of Trek Tuesday for today, because I got my next couple of Star Trek episodes done, and these are a couple of banger episodes that I watched today: Dagger of the Mind and the Corbomite Maneuver. And this is where I'm at in season 1 of the original series. Like they've got their humming, and there's I would say with Dagger of the Mind, there's a couple, like obviously again you got a lot of great classic Star Trek, classic pulp sci-fi things in it. The Dagger of the Mind is asking, where, like, when it comes to criminals and the mentally insane, where is at what point does your therapy get unethical? But the thing that sort of stuck with me from a storytelling perspective on this episode is saying things without saying things. So Kirk in this episode is paired up with a psychologist to go down and check on this prison planet. And it's very, very insinuated, and there's no dialogue at all about it. It's sort of insinuated that, they had a fling during the Christmas party. Kirk went to the office Christmas party and like he was irresponsible, blah 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 blah. Nothing is said about it beyond like vague situational stuff, but the way it's done and the ways Spock's reactions are spectacular as well. Like the audience can just assume, like we all, like it's in vernacular enough to assume that it's like, oh, they had a fling at the Christmas party. And you can, it's a thing with writing, you can say 0 things about a thing and get the audience on your playing field. And ultimately where that ends up going is that no, like there's sort of a twist at the end where we're looking at this sort of mind erasure device that didn't actually happen. Like, yeah, it's like they had a little bit of a moment at the Christmas party, but it didn't go anywhere, and she wished it did. And very, very little is said about it. But it gets like what we can infer it, and then it leads on. It's got a great villain. It's sort of a Mengele style. Like I am making the world better by erasing memories, but at the same time we're erasing individuality, and it raises these questions about cruel and unusual punishment. And it's again classically what Trek is about. Like it's very, very smart writing, and and it's on it. It's great. And then after that, Corbomite Maneuver, where they encounter a Rubik's Cube in space, which and this is the thing about original Trek. There's so much about it that's like, when I say cheap, I mean it in the most loving possible way. They have When they're drinking coffee out of styrofoam cups painted gray with a little Sharpie line around the top. And I love that. I much prefer that to just the insane amount of money that we sink into CG. It's great. And then you've got when we meet Kirk in this episode, like he's doing exercises in the med bay with like these like and clearly cardboard. All the stuff that's clearly cardboard is I think it's delightful. And it's so delightful, so creative. You've got um Ron Howard's brother, Clint Howard, has his cameo at the end. And it's like this, like ultimately, this is like Corbomite Maneuver probably is the I would say an anchor episode of what Star Trek is really about. And to seek out new life, new civilizations, and they find one, that's going to testing them. Are you good people? Are you should I continue to dialogue, or do we stay away? And that's sort of what the show is about, whilst also mixing in these really, really good interpersonal relationships where we've got a sort of scared shitless private, Bailey, who's been overworked, and you've got this sort of conflict between McCoy and Spock of like, you're working these people too hard. Like there's a limit to what they can do. And you've got that going on. And there's in these two episodes, I will say, I love McCoy episodes because he's this curmudgeon with a heart of gold. And when he says, and this is, you can go down to DeForest Kelly's performance, like he says something and you believe it. And that's one thing with Dagger of the Mind. He comes up to him and said the sort of inciting incident is you've got a criminal stowaway, which McCoy is now examining, and through doing his job thinks like there's something more going on here. I don't know what it is, but there is something wrong. And it speaks to that friendship where Kirk can listen to McCoy, and like McCoy is saying there's something wrong. So when I go down to this planet, I need to take this seriously. And when he goes down to the planet, he takes this seriously, and he goes through everything with a heaping glass of skepticism, and puts himself at real risk. And he's got a good he sort of has this adversarial relationship with Helen at the start, and they sort of through it, she realizes, oh, there is more going on here, and she steps up to the plate and goes through it's like, we need to come up with something to sort of get out of here away from this sort of Mengele type, and she's doing the sort of John McClane through the cardboard air ducts, shutting off the power and getting things done. And that was, you had, and again, it's like, this is where just like there have always been great female characters in film and television who are capable. It's just you have to acknowledge that. You have to acknowledge that and realize that like we had we've all been capable since the 60s, so maybe let's stop making an issue of everything. But these two, this is a double feature episode that is hella worth, like if you're trying to introduce people to Star Trek, these two are on point. They're on point and really fantastic episodes. And it's like, I love, like, anytime Leonard Nimoy plays Spock is a good thing. But that about wraps it up for today, I should hopefully have, not hopefully, like we'll be talking next week about something. I just have no idea what. Which is not bad. Like, it's not bad not knowing what you're gonna watch. Like, watch something different. Think, if you come across something that, and this is, I'm gonna go on a little bit of a tangent at the end of I miss Blockbuster. I miss the video rental place because the video rental store did so much for lesser known titles than anything streaming will ever do. Because I remember as a kid, you're walking through those aisles and you could see some random ass cover, and it's like, oh, that looks like fun, and check it out. So find some version of that. Find some version of that and watch something new this week. And at the end of the day, I will see you next time. And au revoir. If I can use StreamYards.